episode of the ADHDads. I'm your host, JJ.
And I'm CJ.
Hey, Coley. How you doing today, buddy?
Good, man. You have the late night jazz radio voice on right now when you started that. I thought we were going to start listening to some easy, smooth jazz or something.
Well, that's my hope and my transition as we come and welcome on a special guest here. His name is Jeremy Roadruck. So we are pleased to welcome Jeremy to discuss the challenges of parenting, including self-control, focus, anxiety, and depression, and more. Jeremy is a speaker, teacher, author, and transformative life coach, and is the founder of Success Behind the BS podcast and the creator of The Roadmap to Relationship Mastery for Men. He's written a best-selling parenting book with a money-back guarantee on creating win-win games. He does a lot of work with dads on divorce-proofing their marriage, raising amazing kids, and finally getting rid of that limiting BS that keeps us from being our best selves. He's been featured in many media outlets on both local and national levels. His mission is to empower dads to strengthen their relationships so they can raise amazing kids. Is that all, Jeremy? Welcome.
And he's got some pretty sweet headphones.
That's right. Yeah.
We've actually known Jeremy for a little bit of time. He's in a group of fathers who are kind of dedicated to the idea of bringing emotional intelligence to their relationships within their families and in their marital partnerships. So Jeremy has a lot of experience kind of helping guys like us to further understand ourselves and understand our relationships and work toward what's better in those relationship dynamics. So yeah, Jeremy, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, other than all the many accolades you've already been shared with so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thank you, gentlemen, for the opportunity. Those of you who don't know, we had a technical snafu with the internet webs and things were fugly. And I want to thank both of you for resourcefulness, resilience in the face of turmoil. You both handled it like sense of humor and just, hey, it's tech and not a big deal. Where some people could take that sideways and their whole world collapses and it's the worst day ever and it's the catastrophize it. You guys just took it in stride and drove on. So I think that's a fantastic recognition for the type of men that you are under pressure, which suggests how you could show up or how you do show up with your family and your kids as well. Because how we do anything a lot of times reveals how we could do everything. It's just about getting that alignment. And I know with our kids, sometimes when things go sideways, we're not so calm, cool, and collected. We are still human beings, a work in progress. So I just want to acknowledge that because I was irritated and I lost like half a day because of the internet. I didn't realize just how much I rely on my laptop versus my phone. And it's a good realization for me as well. And my wife had a really cool conversation with that last night of just, anytime I ever tell you I want to get rid of the internet, just remind me of today. And I was like, yes.
I appreciate you saying that, Jeremy. Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks for coming back on as well. So, we just did an episode last week about crisis mode. So, I think we've both got our Jedi senses going on for hiccups and curveballs being thrown our way because that's life, right? So,
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming back, man. I really appreciate you here, and I know you got some good things for us to say today. So, looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So, just real quick to go to JJ's initial question. Those kids that have a million questions and they're everywhere all at once and they're into everything and they're super hard to focus. So that was me from falling
ADHD
asleep.
Kids, that's me. Yeah.
Yeah. Falling asleep, standing up in the crib, raised on a leash to keep me out of traffic when I was 4, climbed on the roof of the house and got lost at a Turkish bazaar also when I was 4, kicked out of gifted programs for not following the structure in middle school, grounded for bad grades as a senior while I was the lead in the play, plus tension with my dad growing up because he never quite understood how to reach me, to now I am a mentor. Through the martial arts, I became a mentor and I work with fathers and kids alike. As a Kung Fu master, I saw a lot of the same problems in families where parents would bring me their kids to quote unquote fix them. It was usually a discipline or a confidence issue. It's one of those two sides. But it was really about unlocking how these kids process and the parents not knowing the strategies to match. The love was obvious, but there was just some tweaking on specific angles of approach that needed to be made. That's what led me to writing my parenting book, even before I was a parent to my own kids, because I saw these patterns over and over and over, and I didn't have those conflicts because I approached things from a different angle. And now that I am a husband and father, I know firsthand the importance of, as dads, being present with our families every single day, right? And it's not just showing up for our kids; it's showing up for mom as well. with our family, everything becomes a lesson. Even sometimes teaching what we don't want them to do, our actions teach whether we like it or not, right? There's a great quote from Robert Fulghum: don't worry that your kids don't listen. Worry that your kids are always watching. And so now, whatever tension, whatever stress, if we know how to step into those moments, we can create and we can teach and we can expand. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping dads to show up as they were truly meant to be. That's why I created the Roadmap to Relationship Mastery for Men. That's why I wrote my book. And just to let you guys know, with my dad, he actually wrote a testimonial for my book on Amazon saying, I wish I'd had this book when I was raising 2 sons of my own. So, the love is there, the respect is there, and sometimes it just takes us time to find all that. So that's what I'm here to do, and I'm ready to chomp at the bit. Let's go play with some topics.
Well, I want to say, question something too that you just kind of were talking about broaching with your dad. Like, what did those conversations look like? And, because you said that he was maybe not in alignment with how maybe you parent now. How did you kind of open up that perspective with them, or what did conversations look like with him about that?
Yeah, so my dad read a book back in the 1970s called Games People Play. And this was based out of transactional analysis. Transactional analysis was kind of in vogue in the 70s, and it came into analyzing relationships from either one of 3 relationships or dynamics: the parent, the child, and the adult. And so they looked at power dynamics, and the games that they talk about in this book is how to identify dysfunctional games and break them. What it didn't do was how to replace them with a better game, which is why I wrote Your Best Child Ever Is This Game Worth Winning. This is the answer to this book, because my dad and I would have some sort of conflict. I would do something dumb, and then my dad would say, well, you should have done blah, blah, blah. And then I would play a game they identify in the book called Yes, But. Well, yes, but extenuating circumstance, more context, expansion. And then my dad, problem solver, masculine. Well, then you should have done ... Yeah, but more extenuating circumstance, more justification, more details. And then after about 2 or 3 loops of this, my dad would identify, you're playing the yes, but game. Come back in when you want to talk seriously. And so what happened was, I didn't realize I was enmeshed in a game of justification and rationalization. I didn't know the pattern I was in. My dad is a raging extrovert who is just call it like he sees it and drive on. And so he identified my behavior, which created judgment, and it invalidated everything I was trying to communicate. So it got to the point, I'm never going to tell you anything because you're just going to justify, you're going to label, and you're going to reject me unless I come in at your terms. So he didn't mean to kill the flow between us. He accurately identified a pattern, the yes, but game. He labeled it. He refused to participate in it, which is all good things. But as a child, as a teenager, trying to word my way through my experience, it put judgment into me. It cut down my ability to explain. I'm not the raging extrovert he was, that I could come back and just hammer with him and we'll have that fight and we'll argue it through and we'll find clarity through conflict. That wasn't who I was at that time. And so it just got to the point I felt judged. So F you, I'm not going to do this anymore. And so then we have no relationship. I'll grunt at you in the hallway. And now he's lost the ability to positively impact his son through direct interaction because of that. And so it was like, when I was 26, I realized I'm the first me my parents ever raised. When they do it again, they'll do it right. And that let me drop a lot of baggage and a lot of expectation, because there's a lot of stuff I didn't tell them was going on with me. So how are they supposed to know and adapt if they don't have that information? And that really began to open up and heal a lot of the stuff between us, simply because I realized, in my roadmap, it's step 1 is the wound. I realized where the wounds were. And so then I can start to heal the problem or the impact. I can start to apologize. I can start to behave better, because I realized my wound was pulling me back this way. But when we're in our wound, we often push stuff out to other people to protect ourselves. And so there's this internal game, and then there's the external game. And as I began to realize those two at play, I can now bridge between. And that's how my dad is the guy he is, and he still is. And he's grown and expanded as a human being, but he's got a solidity to him that I respect and I admire, and I can learn from, and I can also temper with my own kids, that I don't have to show up as strong an edge as he did. So what a great opportunity to learn from his example, not make him wrong. And then I can help my kids bridge when they get into any kind of tension or stress with my dad. Like, you've got to understand kind of, here's his operational mode, now we can adapt it and play inside that game. And so that's really the idea of like, let's create a game we both can play at and both feel good about, versus let's just crash into each other and I'm right, you don't love me, and like projecting all that stuff. That's all the wound talking. Versus, wow, I'm struggling with this impact. I don't feel good about what just happened. Can we clarify? That's a whole different game to play.
No, I feel like you just wrote a biography about my life and my relationship with my dad.
There's a reason I work with men, because we've all been there.
I asked Jeremy, that question selfishly because I try to broach these conversations with my own father, and it seems like an obstacle at a lot of times with our perspectives and the generational gap there and how we analyze the world. So that's very. I really loved what you said about it being a game where there's two participants in it, because I think I spent a lot of my time in my 20s thinking like, well, it's my dad's job to teach me these things and he's not able to, so I'm going to harbor resentment. And it took me into my maturity in my 30s and talking with a lot of coaches and men like you and a part of the groups that we are that realized that it is a two-person game. It's not meant to be played one player, and it takes both of us in this equal participatory, both of our opinions and our valuable perspectives in that generational gap itself that also puts the distance in there is also this really great beauty of how we can open each other's minds to different ways of thinking. And, I heard something recently that said therapy and counseling psychology is a great place to go to figure out, why you are the way that you are. And coaching is a good place to figure out how to change those behaviors.
Right.
And I think that you just kind of articulated that too. But, and I think that there's a great value though of bridging those generation gaps with our dads, even if our perspectives aren't lined up, because I think that that's really kind of how you do that. So thank you for that. That was very valuable already, man. Not even 10 minutes in, we're getting some value out of this.
Hammer that stuff. Let's go. Let's get it.
Yeah. And I think there could be a whole episode on just, like the conversation with your parents, what is that going to look like? How do we reach those deeper levels with them? Cause I mean, like you said, Jeremy, your dad solidified in some ways. But I'm also curious, when you say that, then you also said that he wrote you, a very praising review. So did you happen to have a conversation with him and learn a little bit more about how he's kind of maybe turned a corner, not necessarily to kind of bend, but more or less to expand?
I don't know that we've ever sat down to really like bang on stuff, but I have a Kung Fu mastery background, and my dad is a deacon in the Roman Catholic Church. And there is a lot of common ground between the two of us. For my dad, like Romans 10-12 is the heart of the Christian message. And if you guys haven't read it, obviously go check out those letters from Paul. But it's about the law of love being written in the heart of all people and will be judged according to that standard. And I'm coming from a fighting point of view, and Buddhist monks and conflict conflict turning back to harmony. There's a lot of common ground in that, because if you're trying to kill me and I can find a way to connect to your heart and make you my friend, isn't it true I'm killing my enemies by connecting to you? And so with that idea of transformation of the heart, that's a really interesting thing. And we can go inside, we can go outside. So there's that inner game, outer game. But just by me kind of sharing the journey as I moved through Kung Fu Mastery, we found a lot of common ground. And a lot of my dad, because he's such a strong extrovert, watch what he's doing, will show you who he is. Like, go to the 5 love languages. He's an acts of service guy. Don't expect words of affirmation. He's not going to be super effuse. And there was one time, there's this group called the National Diaconate Organization, and my dad was the president, and they did a thing down in Cincinnati when I lived in Ohio. They had a speaker canceled, and literally like the day before. And my dad was like, hey, could you fill in? Because he knows I do speaking and stuff. And I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. And it was about service. And so then my dad did the intro, and I haven't found the recording yet. Somewhere out there, they have a recording. I'm like, I want it, because the intro he gave me was really cool. Because it was the first time I really heard the pride that he had in me that he had never expressed to me. And so it was being able to see that in a sideways context. And he's like telling them about, my son, he's a martial arts master and an international champion, and he's going to talk about service. And you really want to pay attention to this, because he's going to hurt your brain, but in a good way. And it was like, holy hell, he has been paying attention. And even if he and I crash into each other from different perspectives, because we both have our own need structures and whatever, outward facing to the world, like there's a level of pride. Like, to give you guys an example, I swam from 8 to 13 and I got 5 participation trophies. And only one time did I get like a double. I got an A time, almost a double A time. And the way swimming works, there's A, double A, triple A, and then like junior Olympic. So it's like there's levels to how fast you swim. And you know, I'm a kung fu master. I'm a best-selling author. I'm a this. I'm a that. All these accolades. It's all wonderful. But to me, that's normal. But my dad always, when he meets people, he tells them about the 5 participation trophies. And I remember one time I got really pissed at him, and I'm like, Dad, like, let it go. Like, obviously my life is not there anymore. I'm not just a participant. I don't just show up and tread water, blah, blah, blah. And as I'm mad at him about it, and I'm telling him to like let that story go, I realized he's proud of me and telling people that story because the man they see now is not that boy who was treading water for 5 years. I took that story as an insult. And you're still rubbing my face in I didn't show up as a 13-year-old, not realizing, no, he's contextualizing for people to see where I came from. Oh, crap. Damn, Dad. Like, that was a really cool moment of just, but I found that in conflict with him because I was like, you know, like, stop telling this story. I hate this. Oh, that's what you're doing. Holy hippie snot. Okay. Now that story doesn't faze me anymore. And it's like, oh, hell, that's cool, Dad. You know?
Yeah, that's really cool because you know, I kind of struggle with that too a lot, and I vocalize a lot of that with my mom or with my wife here about my mom and dad. You know, that I don't know if they're proud of me, and they don't vocalize it a lot. My dad is definitely not a verbal affirmation kind of guy either, you know. But when he comes to visit and leaves, and I vocalize some of that stuff to my wife, she goes, "I don't see that. I think your dad is beaming with pride when he comes here. You know, he just doesn't say it in the ways that I want, but you know, and I get so caught up in that and so distracted by that that I forget to see what she sees in these moments, you know? So how do you do that with men? How do you get them to pause, maybe open up a perspective to see a relationship that is better than they are trying to vocalize that it is?
Yeah. So a lot of that is context and optics because you're going into like your needs and your needs being met in a certain container, a certain vehicle, or a certain structure. And it's like, okay, we'll pause, take a deep breath because we got to like gear down. Second step is think about how they grew up and what they went through, what their experiences were, right? You want approval from your parents. Well, what's their relationship with their parents? Did they have that approval or are they still waiting for it? Because if your parents are still waiting for approval from grandma and grandpa, how can they give you what they don't have? Or they'll give you, but they don't know what it really feels like. So they're bad at it because their example is flawed, right? I had a kid I worked with, and kid, I mean kid, like he's 15, and class clown, comedian, cut up, dad, just hardcore, driven man, really mean. Out of his 3 sons, he's really mean to his 15-year-old. And so I had to ask the 15-year-old, you know, tell me about grandpa, tell me about dad's life. And dad grew up hard, struggled for everything he had. And his 15-year-old never takes things any serious, always making jokes, kind of an effeminate affect, maybe gay, maybe not, hasn't figured that out at 15 yet, which is fine, doesn't have to. But for dad's model of the world, if you're not hard and you're not strong, people will take advantage of you. So how do I make my son strong? I got to be mean to him. I got to be cruel to him. I got to be hard on him. And so the analogy I gave the 15-year-old was, imagine your dad only has a half-eaten apple because the world took a bite out of him. And he's giving you the entire apple that he has. And you don't want a half-eaten apple. You want your own apple. He doesn't have that. So you're asking him to give you what he doesn't possess and making him wrong for giving you everything he has. And I'm not saying that's the reality. I'm saying, what if that was the potential? And could you imagine what that feels like? And all of a sudden it's like, wow, my dad's giving me everything he's got, but he got a bite taken out of him. Maybe I can appreciate how far he could reach me and I could maybe reach to him. Because at 15, you're probably going to be a little more flexible and adaptable than a 37, 47-year-old man. because he's had a little bit longer being him than you have being you. True?
Wow. Yeah. That's powerful stuff. And it reminds me of a memory that I had with my dad too, where, I asked my dad, what was relationship like with you and your dad? And he said, man, Grandpa was an asshole. He was always yelling and cursing and drinking. And that's not my memory of Grandpa. He was like the gentle giant. He rarely spoke. And when he did speak, I listened because I was like, Grandpa, speak. He didn't talk. He's talking. Listen. So that's not the memory that I had, but my dad had a completely different experience. And my dad was always very physical touch kind of guy. He was always hugging me, loving on me, kissing me. That display of affection was never scarce in my family. My dad always did that. And that translates into my love language for sure. That physical touch is definitely mine. And my grandpa, I remember, pulled me aside when I was maybe 12 or 13 years old. And I think me and my dad were fighting about something, and my grandpa said, you and your dad have a very special relationship, because my dad never touched me like that. My dad never hugged me. And, he never gave me a hug or a kiss, and you got your dad and you were always touching on each other. And, I never had that with my dad. So you should be grateful. And again, Grandpa spoke. So I was like, oh shit. Okay. This is something I should really, I had never thought about that before, but when he said that to me, I thought about that ever since. Every time my dad gives me a hug, I think, well, this is his way of saying, I'm proud of you, son,
Mm-hmm.
And, and my dad, when I was talking to him too, my about his relationship with his dad, and he was saying that, he said, Grandpa never said I love you, not once to me. He still hasn't said it, and I'll tell him all the time, I love you, and he won't say it to me. And that's kind of ironic, because that's the kind of the relationship dynamic with my dad. That's what I want him to. I just want you to say I'm proud of you. I told him several times, I just want these 4 words, I'm proud of you, just say them to me. And he still can't. He still can't figure out what organization to put them in, or what order, or how to say it, and it not be a thing for some reason. But that's also, like you said, that generational thing, that half bite out of his dad's apple that was given to him, and now he's trying to give me a quarter of an apple, and I want the full thing, damn it. So
yeah well, and part of it, if your dad has deserves tied into it and he still has a wound with his dad, then for me to be proud of my son, again, I have to have it to give. I need validation from my dad to feel complete. So I can't give you what I don't have. I love you. I am proud of you. But to say those words, I don't deserve to say those words, because I'm not proud of myself as a father yet. Right? With masculine, one of the big problems we have is the way we calculate deserves. All the good you've ever done, minus all the harm you believe you've caused that you haven't forgiven yourself for. And whatever that equation balances out to, that's what you deserve, and you will not ask for more than what you deserve. And then we mess ourselves over because we also won't ask for what we deserve from someone that we judge to have things worse than we do. This is why when our wives are kvetching and they're overwhelmed or overloaded, we don't ask for our needs, because we go to protect our provider mode. I'm not gonna ask you to give me resources you don't have. That's not fair. I'm not a taker. I'm a giver. And so we shut down and we go to give her what she needs, and we're more and more depleted. So for your dad, if there's something in his parenting he hasn't forgiven himself for, then it's hard for him to say, I'm proud of you, because he's not proud of himself. And he can't give you those words without it costing who he is, because he knows he's not at the standard that he wants with you yet. There's more that he has to do. And that may be an impossible standard because he hasn't gotten a resolution with his dad. And this is where things trickle through family lines. Because we're immersed in the experience, or we're enmeshed in the experience, our identity is tied to our wound. So it's to get healing is to lose who we are. And so sometimes we stay stuck with stuff that we don't want because it helps to define who we are. And if we lose it, who are we? When I work with somebody who has post-traumatic stress diagnosis, he loses disability money, he loses an animal, he loses connection, there's all this stuff that he loses if he's healthy and whole, just a normal person. And it's like, well, I lose all these things, and it's an unconscious attachment. Nobody does this on purpose. Once they become aware of it, it's like, oh crap, I don't want to be in here. Now what do I do? But it's called secondary gain. is the technical term. It's the benefit you get from having the problem is greater than the perceived solution. And so we stay immersed in what Zig Ziglar would call a loser's limb, right? You get the guy running in football, and the guy with the ball is right ahead of him, and I'm running after him, but I'm not going to catch him. And my hamstring. Oh, I would have caught him, but that hamstring. Oh, I pulled myself. Oh, my injury. It's like that I could have, but, and then I make an excuse. And so it's kind of that attachment that we create unconsciously. And it's like, oh, there were other options, or there could be other options. But it's like, for him to give you those words, it costs him on some level. So he's got to get that healing from grandpa. And if grandpa's still here, it's possible. If grandpa's not here, it's actually easier to get the healing, which is counterintuitive. There's things we can do in the unconscious mind that are really awesome, and you can get the healing. It's actually easier when they're not there, because then they don't like show up and mess up the healing by having an opinion and being a real human being. It's like, so when they're not there, we can actually get closure because they're not there to have an opinion and mess it up. Thank you. So there's that flow. Does that resonate for you?
Yeah, definitely. So my next question is then, we've asked somebody to identify some problematic behavior, and they've stopped playing victim, maybe in blaming other people, and they said, "Oh shit, I'm the common denominator here." Mm-hmm. But that hurts. That makes me also question, who am I? And what does that next question look like? How do you help them define, who am I?
Yeah. Who do you want to be? Who do you need to be? Like, because it's all made up. It's all BS, right? We are at the most existential level. We are positive energy, occupying space, moving forward through time. Awesome. So what's the impact you want to make on the world? How do you want to leave things? Like take the word deserves out of the equation. Put that aside. Not do you deserve to be at this level or deserve to have this impact. We'll deal with that later. But just tell me, like if you had it all your way, if you could wave a magic wand and have your life be the way that you wanted, or have the impact or the relationships or the whatever. Because we've got to get to that. What is your highest and deepest? And take all the filters off. And in your heart of hearts, if you were given permission to just state what you truly want, cool. Because once we know what that is, we can figure out how to get there. Right? That's why I like what you said with the therapy versus coaching. Therapy is a lot of navel gazing. It's a lot of why. I don't know, because someone licked all the red off your candy when you were 2. I wasn't there. Right? Does it really matter? What do you want? Let's define that. Because why will spin, and we can why ourselves ad infinitum forever and never get to clarity. What do you want? How would you know you have it? Cool. And that's the tactical side. That's why I'm coach, not therapist, is because I want to get there fast and I want to get clarity. Like if I'm working with somebody for years and years and years, I'm doing something massively wrong. It should be the work I do and the impacts that I make are like year or less, sometimes 2 to 3 months, because it's quick, tactical shifts, right? I've got a dad who he's got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and he's losing his shiz 10 minutes and he blows up. Cool. So 0 to 10, how you handling that situation? Well, that's like a 2. Okay. So 10 minutes is a 2. What would be a 10? Well, I never lose my anger, never lose my temper with my sons. Dude, that's awesome. I don't know that that's possible. Like, I don't know that that's realistic as a human being to never get angry with your sons, but we'll call that a 10. Fantastic. It's your world. So what about an hour? Both of your sons for an hour, yelling and screaming and flinging poo and fighting with each other and disrespecting mom, and you're calm, cool, collected for an hour. Scale me 1 to 10. What would that be? That'd be like a 9. All right, dude. Cool. So now we've got a 2 and we've got a 9. So if we could take you from 10 minutes before you lose your shiz, let's go to 20 minutes. Would that be like 2, 3, 4? Definitely at least a 3. Okay, cool. So now we have a tangible place to make growth, because how does he want to show up with his sons? I don't want to be this way with my sons. Cool. What would you want instead? This. Fantastic. And then I'm scaling it 0 to 10 just to get, it's a heuristic. It's not real. It's just, but it's a context to like, oh, if I could be here and never lose my temper. Cool. What about if we just double you from 10 minutes to 20 minutes? And it's not actually that complicated. We can do that within 2 weeks to a month. We can instill specific strategies and tactics and ways to scramble what's going on. Get to the origination of that, because you got 2 boys that both want to do the same thing. And the younger one, who is me, he has the thing. I want the thing. You never even existed until 10 seconds ago. Yeah, but now my whole life is about that one thing. Son of a biscuit. So it's like, that's where we start going tactical to like, well, what do you really want? If you had it all your way, and we call that spotlighting. If you had it all your way, what would you really want? And they tell me. And what would that provide? What would that make possible? What would that give you? Because once I have that second piece of what it gives, now I can find lots of ways to get there quicker, easier. Right? Well, I want my dad to say, I'm proud of you. Cool. What would that give you? Are there other things he can do to communicate that and create that experience for you? Because then your antenna shifts. You start noticing his behavior different. Go, oh shit, he is showing me that he is proud of me when he does this, when he says that, when he shares this, when he comments this. Oh, he is. He's not using that construct, that magical phrase, but 17 other ways he's showing it to me because he's an acts of service guy and he shows, oh. And now, is that good enough, or do you absolutely need those words? And maybe you do absolutely need those words. Cool. Then how can we create the situation where those words can flow out of him easily and effortlessly? And then we just reverse engineer him and his need structure and how he communicates. And we just okay, cool. Create the reality where he can just show up and be authentically himself and give you what you need because we understood what he needed first. But it all comes from ultimately, what do you want? Once you own that and claim that, we can figure out how. It's not as complicated as we make it, but because we're in our own hole, right? When you're in an 8-foot hole and someone grab yourself by the scruff of the neck and pull, you don't go very far. I've tried. Got to get that outside reference.
So then what does the next obstacle or hurdle look like then, once we develop strategies? Because I imagine it's not just smooth sailing, right? Because, I feel like there's a lot of hiccups, a lot of failures, and a lot of stumbling along the way. So what do conversations look like when we fall into old tendencies, behaviors, or patterns that are self-destructive? And how do we have resiliency and forgiveness, patience with ourselves so that we can rebound rather than just like falling into the reciprocal old patterns of self-destructiveness?
Yeah. So that's where we go to the story, because the story is the why, is the justification, is the rationalization, right? You gave me a lot of different adjectives, adverbs, constructs. All I heard was feedback, right? Because if someone gives me conflict, cool. They're telling me where they are. They're mad at me. Fantastic. That's a lot of energy. All they're giving me is feedback in the dynamic relationship. Cool. Now I know what next to address. I know what next to tackle. I know what next is in front of me. Right? It's counterintuitive when I talk to a guy whose marriage is failing and I'm like, she's still mad at you? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, good. What? Yeah, because she cares to have her opinion heard. She cares to tell you where she's at and what she's feeling and what she's thinking. She's not done with you. A woman who is done with you literally has no space inside her for your existence in any way, shape, or form. She could talk to you. She could talk to the washing machine. She could talk to her car. It's the same amplitude and same energy and same opinion, and she has the same desire to connect, which is zero. So the fact she's pissed, that's beautiful because she cares. There's room here to heal and to recover this, but you've got to grow and you've got to shift. So it's all feedback because that's all that ultimately is. Do you want to be right or do you want to get results? That's the next question. Once we define what it is and we start working, because there's always going to be pushback. There's always going to be feedback. There's always going to be momentum, right? I had a 9-year-old come into my school and he's dealing with some stuff. And I asked the parents, tell me how long all these things. Cool. Yeah, we can change that in a week. And they're like, no way. And I'm like, yeah, just realize a week is 168 hours. If I see him twice a week for an hour each, that's 83 weeks, which is a year and a half. And then the parents go, oh, now if he's here more, I can affect change faster. If you get on board with me and you use the strategies and tools and read my book, we can get there faster because now we're reinforcing the same structures. We can build momentum. He's had 9 years to be the way that he is. And to think I'm going to come in 2 weeks and change it in martial arts, I only saw him 4 hours. I'm not going to make that big of a shift. I don't have enough time. But immerse yourself in these tools, this technology, this framework, this mindset. Come hang out with me for a bit. Because everything I have, I built inside me. I had to make myself the guy that you're meeting right now. Because at 5 and 6, I had some very bad stuff that took me sideways. And I was not where I am now for a very long time. Because I had healing I had to go through, and I couldn't trust anybody. I couldn't trust adults. I couldn't trust kids. So what am I left with? Build it myself. And so it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of mistakes. But it's that all you're getting is feedback. Cool. What do you do with the feedback? You can make it personal, and I'm a failure, and I'm pathetic, and no. You learned exactly what not to do the exact same way, so now you get to change it. What'd you do? Okay. Well, how was that received? Okay, fantastic. What are you going to do different next time? Oh, yeah, it's all iterative, right? The success we want is here, and it's wrapped in this thing we call failure. No, it's not failure. It's just feedback. Because any angle you come at to get to the goodness inside, it's like eating a lollipop, right? The Tootsie Roll, it's in there. You just got to, any way you go. What people think is this false illusion of success on one side, failure on the other. You walk away from failure towards success. No, success is wrapped in feedback. The feedback is the success you don't want, aka failure. Because some people would love to have your failure because they're even in a worse position, that your failure would feel to them like a success because at least you have someone to care about, to argue with or to fight with or to push back against you. So when should you stop? At the success you don't want or the success you do want? And most people give up when they get what they don't want. They give up. I'm like, well, then you're going to be stuck with that forever. Or pick yourself up, dust yourself off, make a couple changes, drive forward. Well, I don't know what else to change. Well, I'm glad we're talking because I love to change things.
It sounds like martial arts has played a pretty big part in your self-development and the way that you coach and the way that you analyze life. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like what did that martial arts journey look like, and how do you think that it's kind of translated into your coaching now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I met one of my Kung Fu brothers, Master Chongo, who wasn't a master back then. He was a purple sash. And he had been training. I didn't know it at the time, but he had been training since he was 5 years old. He's 5 years older than me. So at that point, it was 25 years. I was 20 when I walked into the school. And purple sash, just a tank of a man, and went to shake hands. And I said, oh, I don't shake hands. And he said, oh, yeah, why's that? And I said, well, shaking hands is a symbol between ancient warrior cultures that you're not carrying a weapon. But you're a martial artist. You've trained your whole body to be a weapon. That makes you a liar. I don't believe in lying. That's how I met him at 20 years old, at 132 pounds, at 5'11", white kid from the suburbs. That's how I met him. And so for 3 years, Master Chongo, he hated my guts, and he just wanted to destroy me. And the real truth was I was rejecting myself. So I already know I'm unlovable, or I believe I'm unlovable. I know you're going to reject me. I'm going to make you do it on my terms now and not waste time. And so I had this massive intellect that I would weaponize and use to insult people, to show, look at me, look how much smarter than I am than you, look how much more intelligent. You should just shut up and do things my way because I'm right. And I had this massive chip on my shoulder. As I went through the process, it took like 6 or 9 months to get into the sparring class. And when I got into sparring, Chongo beat the piss out of me, like every which way from Sunday, like anything, just knocked the crap out of me. And every time I would get up and be like, cool, what'd you do? Like he couldn't hurt me because I was there to make myself a better person. I was there actually for the right reasons. Even I had that massive chip and that massive ego and that massive wound that I was totally living in. He just beat the crap out of me, and it was no fun because I never got mad. I never took it personal. I never thought anything other than, what did you do? What did I do wrong? It was just all this feedback because I wanted to get the result. And I was so hungry for the result, I would go through anything. And I literally got the crap beat out of me for months. And he realized who I am on the inside is not how I showed up. And that was the difference, right? Because martial arts forces you to be real. There's no would have, could have, should have. There just is. Throw the punch, don't throw the punch. Are you afraid or not afraid? Are you open or not open? If you get hit, it's because you're open. Now, why are you open? Because you did something, or because they created the opening, because you reacted out of fear, anticipation, or whatever. Like there's all this head stuff going on if you're aware of it. Like you only get hit because you're open, and that's the only thing you can control. I can't control what you do right. I can only control what I do wrong. And you punching me, kicking me, tackling me, choking me, sweeping me, tapping me out, whatever the case, all that is feedback that I had an opening. So if I have the right attitude, I'll say thank you, and I'll try to take that opening away. And all it does is make me better. Now, if we stay technician, then I'm only looking at on the training floor. But in my Kung Fu family, right, we call it, it's Shaolin Wing Chun. We study Kung Fu life. It goes off the floor. How you do martial arts is how you do life. That's what we call being a practitioner. So I'm learning this domain mastery and this skill but now it impacts, how am I showing up at work? How am I showing up with friends? How am I showing up with family? Where's the consistency? And am I showing up the same way? Am I the same person, or am I putting on different personalities? And so it's getting more and more to just being authentically yourself, regardless of circumstance. Like, we do a demonstration. There's no training. There's no preparation. We don't do special classes for demo team. It was Grandmaster Ming. He would say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Get me a blindfold. You're going to do that. Jeremy, you explain. And then, I would be his demonstration partner, or I'd be on the microphone explaining what we're doing. And I'm to the audience, we're demonstrating skill, sensitivity, position, timing, creating openings. It's all just, if you've got the skill, then you've got the skill. And if you don't, well, that's the skill you have now. What are you doing today to improve? Today, maybe not a warrior, maybe tomorrow, but what are you doing today? What's the Kung Fu you built today? With your marriage, what are you putting into your marriage today to make it an epic marriage, if that's what you want, or to make it a train wreck, if that's what you think you deserve? What are you putting into your kids today to make them amazing? What are you putting into, what am I putting, not what am I getting? Because you can't control that. But if I make sure my wife is filled to overflowing, chances are she's going to flow that back to me from a good place. If I demand my wife give me X, Y, Z, but I don't make sure she has it first, now it's a roll of the dice. Well, I like to win. So I know she's a giver and she's going to give. Let me fill her to overflowing, not in a servile, I have to do this so that I deserve some sort of love, or I have to earn the right to be loved. Now I'm the sun shining and I love to shine. Let me just give because I love to give. Let me just light her up because she's amazing and it took me 38 years to find her. Right? And so if that's my frame, totally different vibe coming back from her. And so that's all Kung Fu stuff for me. Like I never left it. Even the bow is this, right? The hand and the fist. This is the invisible. This is the story. This is the why. This is justification. This is the behavior. This is the impact. This is the game. This is the dragon. This is the tiger. The tiger, your actions drive your impact. Your intention drives your actions. So we key on the action, but if I want to change the action, I change the story. That's the easy thing. Try to change the behavior. It's going to take forever, because adjust your elbow, tuck in your, do this. Like, there's all these technical little tiny things trying to get your kid to pick up after themselves. Making a story about cleaning up the house is going to affect their behavior faster than micromanaging them every single day of do this, versus, oh, we have to pull security. Well, if the ninja army attacks, we got to make sure we can sneak around the house and not trip over anything and die before the army gets here. So let's do a quick police action on the house, make sure the house is secure. Can you help me? And all of a sudden your kids are like, we're on patrol. We got to secure the house. We got to check the windows, check the doors, check the Legos, check the socks. We can't let the sock monsters attack, because we know how mom hates sock monsters. We got to get the socks sequestered. We got to corral the socks. And now all of a sudden the kids are engaged and they're playing, and it's a whole lot more fun to do that at the end of the night versus, I have a military background. All right, we got to do fire security. Go sweep the station. Do that too. But it's ways to engage and play. So that's the Kung Fu for me bleeds into frick everything, because it's all energy, occupying space, moving forward through time. And martial arts is the fastest way to get it. Bam!
Yeah. Kung Fu punch.
That's right.
No, I really like what you said about the intention and inaction, because I think that a lot of the hiccups that we experience in life are when I think one of those falls to the wayside, or we're not aware of one of those. We fall into these subconscious patterns of actions, right? Of behaviors. And then we go, why isn't anything the way that I want? Or we want and we want and we want things to change, but we're not doing anything about it, and we just complain, why isn't all these things that I want happening? And it's really that balance and that constant awareness and play of intentionality and structure and implementation and action, right? And, we put so much meaning to failure when we experience it, right? Like, oh, it's who I am. I'm no good. I can't ever do this. I'm never going to be good enough. We just immediately want to look at the failure and say, well, this defines me. I am the failure now, and I really like having the awareness and perspective of it's just feedback. It's just information. It's just all meant to help you along the journey, not to define you.
Yeah, if it's not effortless, you haven't hit mastery yet. So you got more to go. Like, and people will push on me and they'll be like, oh, mastery, never get it wrong. That's impossible. I'm like, hold on a second. Do you know how to use a spoon? Okay, cool. When's the last time you missed your mouth? So you've mastered something, right? Put on your socks. When's the last time you forgot how to put your socks on or put your socks on your feet? And then put your socks on your hands and then try to put your shoes on. No, so there's things. And so it's just that feedback. If there's friction, you're just not at mastery yet. Cool. What do you need to change? What else could you change?
I don't think mastery is necessarily the perfecting of the thing. I think that mastery is the perfecting of the process of the mastery of that thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Your resiliency, your awareness, your ability to pivot, to take information and say it's just information. It's not failure, and to be able to have just an openness to the process and to be able to change.
Well, I have faith I can produce the result. The process may be monkey along the way, and that's fine because I know I'm going to get the result. Now, is it going to go exactly the way I envisioned? No. The universe has an opinion. People have an opinion. So cool, but I know my result. So sometimes I'll help my clients. It's rigid in result, flexible in approach. You'll win. You'll always win. It may take you longer than you thought. You may go sideways for a while before you come back, but the thing you want to create. Cool. Because it's all iterative. And there's a great line from Victor Hugo. There's one thing more powerful than all the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. So the idea that has occurred to you, this worthy goal, this thing that has lit up inside your soul, cool. All you need to do now is continue to take action on it, because if it's the right time for that idea to manifest, it's going to show up. It's just, it takes time to get there because the universe is slow.
Well, I'll take a slight shift from this conversation that's been absolutely amazing and say, a lot of people, they probably come to you with certain belief systems and they see the same results, or they see a lack of results and they're struggling to see some sort of positive, I guess steps forward, especially with their kids. We're a podcast dedicated to, finding the best relationship with our loved ones who some have a form of neurodivergence. And I think I see a lot of parents, they just kind of throw their hands up in the air. They see the same result with their kids, or their kids are not listening is, the common thing. They're not listening. I guess how do we as fathers approach parenting and perhaps different ways to raise amazing kids with ADHD?
Cool. So what's good about that? That's the question you ask yourself, right? So easy one is anger. I have a kid melting down. I have a kid, blah, blah, blah. Cool. What's good about that? Nothing. Okay, well, if there's nothing good about it, then your kid wouldn't exhibit the behavior. In some way, shape, or form, it's meeting their needs. What's good about that behavior? There has to be something good or they wouldn't be doing it. So if I have somebody who's melting down, is it because they don't care or because they do care? Chances are they care. Fantastic. Do you think they have low standards or high standards? Right? Chances are it's higher standards. They're frustrated, they're angry, they're overwhelmed because they're not getting to the result that they want as quickly, as easily as whatever. It sounds like they've got, they care about what's going on. It sounds like they've got high standards. Cool. Does this seem like somebody driving more from inside themselves? I action into the world, or the world is actioning into me? Because somebody who is overwhelmed by the world, do they get angry about stuff, or do they just kind of throw their hands up and dovetail into themselves? So it sounds like you've got someone who cares, who has high standards, who has an internal locus of control. So what we need is, there's energy there. It needs guidance. So what are you doing right now that's guiding them somewhere? And so by asking questions, we start to unpack meaning and we start to shift focus. Because if it's just they don't listen, they're not following my instructions. Now the parents are having a temper tantrum of their own, maybe not as high amplitude as anger, but it may be sadness, fear, hurt, guilt. But the parents are having their own emotional cascade. Their amygdala is hijacked. Just as much as the kids, they just know how to control their affect and not rage the way kids rage. Kids are more honest. Here's where I'm at. The adults will be the exact same place, but they'll lie about it. No, it's fine. It's okay. I'm good. I'm like, Dad, just have a meltdown. Like, in fact, sometimes when your kid's having a meltdown, if you like throw yourself on the ground and have a bigger meltdown, like the kids are like, what are you doing? Because like mom and dad can't do that. And it interrupts the whole pattern. And the kids will like never do that again, because every time they think about it, they see you doing the same. My kid never listens. And you're down on the ground and stomp on your hand. They're like, holy free holies, what are you doing? And like, they never do that again because you amped so much energy into it. Like, I a different strategy. Right. Or maybe when they're melting down, you just sit with them and you just breathe. Or maybe you model the same speech pattern, the same rhythm, the same intensity, but you use your normal words. So your kid's freaking out because it's never fair and it's not okay with me. You know what? You're right. It's like I have a kid who's having struggle right now and really cares about what's going on, but is having a hard time getting people to listen. So maybe we should just slow down and take a deep breath and we can just figure out what's going on between us. Would that be okay with you? And I hit them at their amplitude, speed. It's called mirroring and matching, but I'm entering their model of the world at their amplitude, and then I gear down, and it helps them to deregulate down. Versus, I get a kid who's really agitated, really freaking out. Honey, take a deep breath with me. There's such a mismatch between those two. That kid, like, there's no rapport. Like that kid can't, or conversely, I get a kid who talks slower, and I have parents that are talking really fast. With your kid, we generally think about as fast as we talk. So if somebody's talking a little slower, then you've got to gear your pace down for them. Otherwise, they're going to only get every third or fourth word and feel more misunderstood and more overloaded. So we really have to look at our voice and our speech pattern and our cadence and our timbre and our tonality as a musical instrument, because they're in a place and they're giving you all this information. You've got to pick up on that as well and be able to calibrate it. Hard when you're in your own stuff. But like, I have a whole course I do for parents on getting your kids to listen. And it's partly, well, if you have a kid who's kinesthetic, they're not going to listen because they're a feeler. They have to feel their way to stuff. So you use words as a mismatch. Or if I have a kid who's visual and you need to talk, right? I had a family, mom, dad, daughter, or auditory. And so whenever there's a problem, they want to talk. And the 5-year-old son is visual kinesthetic. He needs to see it and feel it. And so they're having a talk about the thing and he's melting down in his chair and he feels like nobody cares about him because he can't create the mental picture for the words they're using fast enough to keep up. And I'm talking with them and we're at a restaurant, and for 45 minutes, I had the 5-year-old fully engaged in the conversation because I was using the salt shakers and the sugar packets, and I was making doodles on the placemat with the crayon. I'm giving him pictures and I'm getting him to engage me every 30 to 45 seconds to make sure what I'm saying he's tracking. And so for 45 minutes, he's not melting down. He's not distracted. He's not staring around the room. He's actively involved and contributing to the conversation, because I engaged his visual and kinesthetic systems differently, because they're so auditorily driven, their bodies shut off and they're just words and heads talking at each other, and he needs a different modality. Now, does that mean he's neurodiverse? Does that mean the neurotypical? I don't know any of that stuff. I know as a hypnotherapist, how we internalize the world is unique to us as individuals. And there's 6 basic points of entry: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, conceptual, olfactory, and gustatory. So it's just, how do I engage this particular psychology's input-output systems? And then I have another psychology's input-output systems. And how do I gear them together? Because I want to get result. I don't care about being right. I don't care about labels. I care about impact and being seen and understood, felt, heard, appreciated, so then they can be supported. Someone who doesn't, if they don't feel seen, they don't feel heard, they don't feel understood, they don't feel felt, they don't feel appreciated, your support will be perceived as an attack. Because you don't get me. You're just spouting your opinions. That was my argument with my dad. You're just throwing this stuff at me. You don't get me. Because he's missing these other 5. So I call it the 6 golden tickets. You're missing these 5. Your support is perceived as an attack. So I'm either going to attack back, leave, or stonewall, because that's the only way I can protect myself. And it's not because of a lack of love. It's pure instinct impact of self-preservation under pressure. We are all selfish for our own self-preservation because that's our instincts. So you either get a loving response or a cry for help. And if someone's not giving you a loving response, you automatically know they're not in a good place. So when your kids are pushing back on you, when they're melting down, when they're stressed out, when they're high affect, high amplitude energy, or low affect, low amplitude energy, cool, I know things aren't okay with them. Awesome, take a deep breath. Make sure I'm not joining them. That's first, always is a deep breath, because that shifts us from fight or flight into rest and digest. It literally gears our nervous system down to be more in control. So take a deep breath, soften the tension in your body. Because sometimes when we're tense as adults, our kids read our tension as they're mad at me. We may be mad at ourselves, but the kids don't know that. So they receive that as, oh, dad's mad at me versus dad's stressed with himself, right? My dad, my brother, and I went to go play video games back when you had to have quarters and go places. And it was for my brother because he had some processing stuff and some learning stuff. So go play video games, learn to distract with all the noise and learn to focus with all the noise. My dad brought me. The kid raised on a leash, climbed on the roof of the house at 4. He brought me to an arcade where I had to ask him for quarters to go play a game. And I'm 4 years younger than my brother, and we're here for my brother. And so I'm up my dad's butt about, can I have a quarter? Dad, can I have a quarter? I'm going to go play a game. Dad, I just saw Pac-Man. Can I have a quarter? Hey, there's Defender over there. Can I have a quarter? Oh, there's Donkey Kong. Can I have a quarter? Can I? And my dad doesn't know how to handle me and my high amplitude Tigger energy. And my brother, Eeyore, go play the video game. So he has to down-regulate for my brother, up-regulate for me, already stressed. My dad's an extrovert. He knows who he is. First, last, and only. So I guess the point, my dad blows up, throws the quarters at the machine, and stomps off. And I don't understand why he's mad. I got quarters now so I can play. So I'm happy as a clam because I'm not associating to any of this stuff because I know my outcome. Right? My dad, I realized later, like my dad blew up at himself because he couldn't get me to be part of the team to help my brother because we're here for my brother. And so he's mad at himself. But he put the quarters and he threw them and he yelled and he stomped away. So it's like seeing all these different patterns. It's like, okay, take a deep breath, center yourself, soften the tension in your body. Now what's really going on? And if I'm not getting a loving response, cool. How can I engage that? Maybe it's a time, shut up and do it. Maybe it's a time I take my kid out of that situation. The other day, my daughter pick which Lunchable. She couldn't decide. I'm going to count down from 10. Still couldn't decide. She's 8. So she started having a meltdown because she wants them both. I said, you cannot have both. You can have one. I want you to decide. You may have one. If you can't decide, then we will get none. But she wants both. So we went back and forth. I counted down from 10. She still couldn't do it. Okay, we are now going to get none. We're going to move on. And now she starts to melt down. So I physically pick her up and I move her in the store and I put her back down. And I'm like, look, kid, I told you. Either you decide or I decide. My decision is none. You may pick one or nothing. You wanted both. I said that was not an option. I went back through it again. I gave you 10 seconds to make up your mind. You couldn't, so we can try again tomorrow, and then you can make a decision. Now, is it possible you get one today, and the next time we go grocery shopping, you get the other one? Is that possible? Because it's helping her to understand she has a hard time making decisions between two things, FOMO, YOLO, all that fun stuff. And it's like, I'm not mad at you. I love you. I'm irritated, but I'm not mad at you. You're a good person. I still love you. But dude, I need you to make a decision. This both or I'm not going to make a decision is not an answer. That's not an option. It's a skill we're working on right now. But it's that I have to get ahead of her because could I get angry about that? Yes. Could I be my dad and slam the quarters and stomp off? Yes. Do I have that in my consciousness? Absolutely. That is an option, but that I have a choice to exhibit that. And am I 100% always on point? No. I lose my shiz on my kids sometimes because I'm a human being too. And I get tired and fatigued and all the rest.
Yeah. You, I think you brought it home really nicely for us too, and what we've been talking about. Because I think, man, so many families and parents, they just want it fixed, right? And we go searching out for coaches and therapists and counselors and all these things to, just fix my kid. I don't know how to fix this behavior. This thing is going wrong in our house. It's causing all this drama. Just give me the information to fix it. And there is no information. We all have opinions and we all have suggestions. And as smart as I think you are and all this great information you've been telling me, Jeremy, it ain't going to work for everybody, right? Like there's going to be families that this shit just doesn't resonate with. And for kids that it's just not happening with. And what we're talking about here is experimentation and the open-mindedness to the feedback, not failure. and what life gives us and what works for us and our relationships and our kids and our personalities and the way that we extrovert or introvert, and that's not always going to work. To throw another layer and filter on there, those aren't always going to work. As soon as you find out, oh shit, this works for me, guess what? It ain't going to work tomorrow, bub. Like it may work the next day, but it ain't going to work tomorrow. Or, we go through seasons, and we are humans with feelings, and we get overtaken by the amygdala sometimes. And the heart can overpower the brain, and the brain can overpower the heart, and the body can overpower both of those with our fatigue, our tiredness, our lethargy, So I think really, again, the takeaway that I'm really pulling away from this conversation today is have fun in the failure. Ryan Holiday does a book too that's been coming up for me, The Obstacle is the Way, that kind of talks about this, not looking at the adversities and the crucibles and obstacles as life as things to go around, but to go through, to take your time with. And instead of just trying to rush and bulldoze through it and get through it as quickly as you can, maybe stop to smell the shit, instead of the flowers when you're going through some crucibles. Maybe get familiar with that smell and that feeling and the way that it affects you, your body, your family, and your relationships. And take that information and say, well, okay, we need to readjust here. We need to grow here. I still have something to learn. What is it? Or, whatever that may be. Because again, I think the important message out of today is have fun in the failure. And it's not failure, it's feedback, it's information. All of that hard shit is really placed in front of you to actually help you, not hurt you.
Well, if you work through that stuff, take your fertilizer and work it into the soil. It makes better flowers. But you have to work it through. You have to break it open. You have to immerse it.
Took my shit metaphor and turned it into a better one.
Yeah. Right. Well, there's a great line from Winston Churchill: when you're going through hell, keep going. And then I couple that with how far can you walk into a forest? Halfway. Because the instant you cross the halfway point, now you're walking out. And that's that as you're going through the shit, when you hit that peak, if you can appreciate that, you can turn that corner. Now you're coming back out of it. And you're changed for the journey. You have this new knowledge, new awareness, new appreciation, right? With my wife and I, appreciating the experience, appreciating the moment. Doesn't mean we like it, but I look for you for how long? Oh, hell, I can weather this. Because there's times when she's stressed about whatever. And she's like, I don't know why you love me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Have you met you? You're amazing. How could I not? Anybody who doesn't obviously isn't paying attention. Because you are absolutely amazing. And she doesn't always understand that. She doesn't always appreciate that. And I think that's why sometimes we need each other to remind us, because we do lose our superpowers. We have this moment of kryptonite, and it's like, yeah, we need that mirror reflected back to say, I'm sorry, did you forget? You can do, and you have, and here's who you really are. Oh, am I? Those are those moments with my dad that healed the situation, was hearing him talk about me to other people. That's what started to reveal really where his heart was. Because if I sit around waiting for him to give me those words, it's never going to happen. Not because he doesn't want to, not because he doesn't care. It's just that's not who he is. Get mad at my dog because it keeps barking instead of meowing like a cat. I'm the idiot.
Yeah, beautiful conversation today, Jeremy. I want to say, based on what I introduced this episode to, we didn't discuss all the topics that we were excited to discuss, which I anticipated. And I realized that this is a conversation that's... Yeah, no, well, it's ADHDads. But yeah, I realized that we had so much opportunity to kind of get beat up with great things and then get up and ask for more and ask about the process with you, Jeremy. So it was a fantastic conversation, and I regret none of it. But I do want to ask a question. What would you like to, tell our listeners that they can, seek out about all this great teaching that you offer, and where can they reach you? And are there any other things that you'd like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Biggest thing is, if anyone's interested, if something in this conversation sparked for you and you're like, ooh, I want to know more, definitely reach out. I am engaged, and I am engaging all the time, because a lighted candle loses nothing by lighting another candle. The only way we, quote unquote, fight darkness is by being so full of light. There's just no darkness around us or within us, because it's just the sun shines. Somebody told the sun about where this darkness was, and the sun was like, oh, okay, I'll go look. And it went and looked and said, I don't see any dark. Well, no, it's over here. And the sun looked and there's no dark, because every time the sun showed up, the darkness disappeared. It's like, how do we get to that place within our own hearts and our own minds? That's kind of my game. That's kind of my quest in life, is just not to discount the darkness, because I know bad stuff have happened. I've had bad stuff happen. But it's, what can we learn from that? How can we grow through that and add value from our experiences? So I'm all over social media. The best place is Facebook. I am the only Jeremy Roadruck in existence. There's only about 300 Roadrucks, and I'm the only Jeremy. So I'm super easy to find. And for the guys that are listening, or for the ladies that are listening and want their husbands to play around with me, the easiest thing to do is to reach out, and I'll send you, I have a quiz. It's 9 questions. It helps guys to spotlight where they're at and what's going on, so we can like dial in on where to make improvement and where to make growth happen. And you do the quiz. I'll send you back a heat map, so you can kind of see like a wheel of life and like how you doing. And for most of the guys I work with, it's kind of constricted. And then in short order, we expand the whole thing. So it's just, everything is easier to move, to operate, to breathe. So, I mean, that's it. Definitely you go to Amazon for Your Best Child Ever Is This Game Worth Winning. You can get it on Audible, Kindle, or paperback. So that's a good resource. And then I've got the roadmap to relationship mastery leads into my Lead Like a King program, and it's designed to help guys expand and grow their abilities. And we have a roadmap that we go through and just walk through where's the gaps. It doesn't mean we have to start at step 1 for everyone. That's why you do the quiz, is to dial in on, here's the things that are pressing on you. And the last thing I'd like to leave guys with, really everything we've talked about today is about being a dad, being a man. How we show up for our family literally is everything. The way we act, the way we interact, the way we lead. But it's important to remember there's always 2 sides in how we show up with our family and our kids. There is that outer game of being a dad, the things you do, the way you talk, what you give, how you discipline, the way the world judges us. And then there's that inner game of being a dad. It's the energy you carry and the way that you show up with your family. There's people that say communication is 7% verbal, means 93% is tone and body language. And that's kind of the outer game, is the word choice. That's the tip of the iceberg. That other 93%, the underlying hidden signals to our hyper-absorbent kids, that's that inner game. The inner game is a silent communication that speaks louder than your words ever could. And most of us, most of the coaching, most of the training, most of the programs, they focus so much on that outer game. I mean, for guys, it's natural. We're wired to be problem solvers, doers, action takers. And I have tons of tips and tactics and strategies that I give to my clients. And I'll share the most powerful in just a second. But when I take guys through the roadmap to relationship mastery, they pretty quickly realize those small inner game adjustments that make it possible for them to show up in their family in the best way possible. As you dial your inner game, it amplifies, it magnifies your outer game. And that's why the relationship mastery is really about yourself. It's your relationship with yourself and your past, what I call personal domain mastery. Once that gets locked in, the outer game almost takes care of itself. Sometimes it feels like it's almost on autopilot, and it produces amazing results and shifts. You've internalized the skills. There's a problem, you handle it. You don't even realize you handled it. You didn't even realize it was a problem. It was just like, oh no, they just asked this thing, I did this thing. And it could have been this big blow up. And instead it was just smooth sailing because you just dialed and adjusted. So that being said, one of the most powerful tools for inner game is to get rid of expectation and get rid of obligation and replace them with appreciation. Because whatever the conflict with your children, they exist. They're in your life. They're whatever headache, heartache, drama. There's an opportunity. They're still alive. We can still play this game. The fact they're even born, we can play this game. My daughter showed up 14 weeks, 1 day early at 1 pound, 1.8 ounces. She was born at 25 weeks, 6 days. We had 2 moments where we didn't know if she was going to come home. And when she was first born, we fell into it of, is she going to walk? Is she going to talk? How is she going to this, that, and the other? Is she going to graduate high school? Is she going to get married? Is she going to go to college? Is she going to have kids? We're bringing 40, 50, 60 years of pain into the existence of a human being who's literally been here hours or days. And we were doing it to ourselves. After about a week or 2, I realized the pattern, and I was like, babe, I'll make a covenant with you. Okay? 3 things. Let's control what we can control, which is our attitude, our inner game. Let's influence what we can influence, which is each other, the conversations, that's the outer game. And we're going to let go of the rest. And we started to appreciate where our daughter was and how far she had come. Oh, dude, 505 grams, 1 pound, 1.8 ounces, doubled her body weight. Are you kidding me? Look at you grow. Tripled her body weight. Oh, she's off the feeding tube. Oh, she's off the vent. So because we celebrated every milestone as it happened, I don't know how much time we have with her. I still don't. But if I can look back at where she started and where she is now and how much she's grown, how much she's changed, I'm told she's going to have asthma and lung disease. She doesn't know that because she hasn't exhibited any symptoms of asthma or lung disease. She runs and climbs and swims. And right now we're getting her ready to join a swim team. Like, this is a young lady who is active and engaged with life. So I don't know the limitations she's supposed to have because I don't have an expectation on that. I just have the feedback she gives me from the moments because we stay in a place of appreciation. So if that's the one thing I could give to all of our listeners today, hold appreciation as your first emotion. Your life will transform. That's how you ride those waves of shit and not get drowned. Because, man, there's nobody I'd rather be going through this crap with than you. Because to go through all this shit by myself, I drowned. When we can appreciate people on the journey, we can appreciate the journey, we can appreciate the experience. This is the first attitude in Kung Fu. Sick fu. Eat shit. When you can eat shit and keep a smile on your face, who else can hurt you?
Oh man, thank you, Jeremy. That was really good stuff. And the whole failure feedback thing was my favorite, but now I'm changing it to the last thing that you said there because I really like the like the the get rid of expectation and start practicing more appreciation aspect because I think you're right. If there's one place to start, I think that honestly was the most important part of the piece of the puzzle. The first piece of the puzzle for me was that, letting down the guards of expectation in life and really like looking around to see, holy shit, there's all this stuff going on. And I didn't even realize it was going on around me. And it's really beautiful. So thank you, Jeremy. And not to worry, guys, we'll have all the show notes we'll have all this information in the show notes for you and how to reach out to Jeremy and contact him and some of the books that we've talked about and read here. So once again, Jeremy, really appreciate you. JJ, thank you for your 2 cents and for doing this as well today. And listeners, thank you for coming along this journey. And please reach out to us and reach out to Jeremy. And thank you for all your support. So this is the ADHDads. I'm CJ.
I'm JJ.
And this has been Jeremy Roadruck. So thank you, Jeremy. And we'll see you next time, guys. Have a good one.